And I am, of course, the Golden One here again. I am Ricky Goldman, and this is the channel of channels, and you damn know it. It's the People's Wrestling Channel, and this is. Give me a second to play this. That's right, another interview. So, about 5 seconds before I bring my guest in, didn't get to do an interview last month. Quite busy. I do plan to do one of these a month at least, once a month, but it is what it is. So, my guest joined me before, but here he is. Interview time. The one, the only MGB, the man himself, Graham.
How's it going?
So, how are you today, Graham?
Hey, I'm doing good right now. I'm a teacher, so I'm actually on spring break this week. So everything's a little bit more relaxed. I got a little bit of time to catch up on some of the wrestling that I've missed. So yeah, everything's going good this week.
Sure, we'll get into all of that as we go along. So you've been on before, you've done reviews, predictions, but people may not know much about you. So you want to tell the viewers more about you, your job, where you live, how you got into wrestling.
Sure.
And yeah.
Yeah, I started a long time ago, probably mid-80s. My dad used to watch World of Sport Wrestling. I sat next to him. That got me into it. So, yeah, Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks. A lot of people sort of in my era, that's probably what got them first into wrestling. Never had cable or anything when I was in England. Didn't have Sky, anything like that. And 2000, I went across to the States as a teacher exchange to work in the States for a couple of years. And yeah, my first WW event was SummerSlam 2000, which turned out to be kind of an iconic event. And yeah, I lapped it up. I did have cable when I was in the States, and for 2 years, I soaked it all in. And what an era to kind of get your first experience of WWE style wrestling.
Yeah.
And then since then, I kind of dropped in, dropped out, watched little bits, and then got back into it again around, I think probably around 2015, 2016, because my sons were kind of getting to that age when I'd started watching wrestling. And I was like, oh, I think they might like this as well. And yeah, they've kind of kept my interest going as well.
So you said you're a teacher. Do you want to tell people a bit about that? I think you're a maths teacher, aren't you?
Yeah, I teach maths over here. It's math. It's very specific. It's not quite like teaching in England is for sure. You teach a very specific, very narrow focus. So I'm specifically an algebra teacher. I used to teach my school. Actually has a specialist program where we actually teach the A levels. So I actually did that for about 10 to 15 years. Dropped out of that last year to focus on the algebra side. But yeah.
And you want to? It's up to you. You want to tell people what state or a city you're
Sure,
in?
yeah. Well, when I first moved to the States, I was actually in North Carolina, and I was probably about 2 hours from Raleigh, which actually it wasn't. I was going to say it was in Raleigh. I think it was actually in Greensboro, North Carolina, SummerSlam, if I remember correctly. I think I had the T-shirt. The Rock finally returns to Greensboro, North Carolina. So I was probably about an hour from there. And I came back to England for a year after my program had finished, and I had such a blast. I was like, I didn't get to see everything in the States in 2 years, so I was like, I'm coming back out. So I came out for 3 years, and just about 30 minutes south of Washington, D.C., so I'm in Northern Virginia. Easy access to a lot of the major cities, which is kind of why I chose there. Like I'm an hour and 15 minutes from Baltimore. Philadelphia is probably just about 2.5 hours. New York's 4.5 hours, which perhaps in English terms is a long way, but in American terms is not really that bad at all. So there was a lot of big cities that I could get access to, and yeah, a lot of the main events come through DC. So it's for wrestling, for music, for sports, for all those sort of traveling things. It really was a good location to choose. Couldn't afford to live in DC, but I did the next best thing and made sure I lived within easy access of DC.
So you live in basically Washington DC, or not?
No, it's a
You
town.
don't.
It's about 30 minutes south.
Fair
But
enough.
the prices are much more affordable than the house prices in England. The money that when I sold my house in England and when I finally did move to the States permanently, I met my wife just before I was supposed to come back to England. We got married, went back to England for a little bit, came back out again, and yeah, it just happens that house prices here are far more reasonable than the equivalent prices you could get in England. So we got kind of lucky, and obviously house sizes here are much bigger than house
Yeah.
sizes in England as well. So you get better value and you get much more space. So I guess that's why I'm still out here. 15 years later, it's like yeah, there's a lot of pros to this deal. So yeah.
Well, there you go. So for people wanting to know more about you, there we go. So you said you since the days of World of Sport. So who are your favourite or favourites all time?
I don't think I can, if I'm picking favorites all time, I don't think I can really pick anybody from World of Sports because it's a very
Any
different style of
WWE,
wrestling. But
WCW, anything.
okay, I'm
Ever,
a big
ever.
fan from 2000. The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hardy Boys, people like that immediately caught my attention. Living in North Carolina, how could you not like the Hardy Boys anyway? People all over the country and all over the world love them. And I'm actually going to see them I'm just looking at my calendar here. Yeah, a month's time. They're appearing at a local indie show,
AEW.
MCW. So I got my third row
AEW.
seats, and I cannot wait to see them again.
Are you going to AEW?
It's not
Oh,
AEW. It's an indie organization.
okay. That's better. You don't want to put any money into AEW. Awful. Anyway, let's not rant about that. We could be here 20 hours. So Hardy's, The Rock, Austin, Undertaker. Would Undertaker be one of your all-time favourite?
I like his entrance. I'm not particularly necessarily a big fan of all his career. I did take my sons to go see him in Philadelphia when I knew he was kind of getting towards the end. I was like, he's not going to be around for much longer. Like, that's just the iconic entrance. Like, I wanted them to experience that in person. So, yeah, I like The Undertaker, but I'm not putting him on the same level as Rock and Austin for sure.
Very quickly, the greatest gimmick of all time, 30 years, and his Hall of Fame speech, just fantastic. I thought done very, very well. And it does look like this is the end, unfortunately, in a way, I suppose. We all want more of The Undertaker, but
you do. I think it needs to end. I think it needs to finish. Leave it at that point. You can't keep retiring and unretiring. I know you might get wrestling. You get a couple of chances, but he's already had his couple. I think that's it. I think he needs to stop.
33 and 36. So yeah, he can't retire for a third time, can he? But he did say never. So he's like leaving the door open, or who knows? Let's hope very quickly. Let's hope they don't drag him out for a Saudi show or.
I don't want him to appear in a match. I have no problem with him appearing in spots. Like if he was to suddenly come out into the ring, pick somebody up, choke slam them, and then kind of just leave. I'd have no problems with something like that, but I don't want to see any more matches.
If he's done, let him be done. Not pop a rating on these Legends Raw that they do. Oh, here comes the Undertaker. No, just have him be done. If he's done, have him be done. And he's doing a podcast, so there we go.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So I know you've been to WrestleMania 36. That was a damn long WrestleMania to watch. I don't know about being there, but we'll get into it. So, quite a lot of questions here. Did you do the Hall of Fame? Did you do Access? Did you do Takeover? Did you do that?
We didn't. No, I actually went with my co-host on Good Cop Bad Cop, Matt Willis from England. We kind of talked about he was kind of mentioned it, and for me it was 4 hours away, and I was like, I definitely want to go, and he was like, well, I want to go, and I was like, well, we can share hotel bills, we can share travel costs, we can kind of do all that together. But I was interested as well on one of the indie events as well. The first indie company I used to go to in Northern Virginia, they were putting on a show. I think it was Friday night. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think it was Friday night. So like, well, I definitely want to go to that. And he said, oh, well, I want to go see that as well. So we did that. We had the WrestleMania Managed to get awesome seats. They were on the lower level. We were kind of behind the entrance a little bit, so we couldn't see everything as they were coming out. But you could see them as once they stepped onto the ramp, you could see everything perfectly. And from there, we got a good view. So we managed to get it on a little bit of a budget, but we got a good deal on those tickets. And then we just kept adding in other little pieces. We found, I think, 3 additional indie shows. And we didn't go to the Hall of Fame. We went to, I wanted to go to Madison Square Gardens. For me, that's like an iconic stadium. I'd never been before. And it was the New Japan Pro Wrestling Ring of Honor Supercard event. So I was like, hey, that's a couple of things. I've never been to a Ring of Honor event. I've never been to a New Japan event. Perfect. So we got to kind of check off a few boxes on the way. And some of those things, obviously, you catch on news later. You catch the videos on YouTube, you catch them on the network, wherever you catch them. So we kind of stayed abreast of all those things in the morning when there's no wrestling going on, but not in person. We didn't go to any of those things.
So you didn't do Access? No?
Nope.
The Raw,
this was on a
budget.
This was on a budget.
Okay, I'm guessing not the Raw after Mania, no.
No,
Mania.
I took Thursday and Friday off. Oh, sorry, I took Friday and Monday off work because I knew that there was no way I could get back to work on Monday. And so we left. I picked him up from the airport Thursday night, and then we kind of drove up most of the way. And I think our first event was like 11 a.m. on a Friday morning because there's shows on continually. So we had a morning show, afternoon show, and then on the Saturday, kind of a similar thing. We had a morning show. And we had the Madison Square Garden show. Actually, I forgot there was an additional indie show. We saw an indie show probably about 2-3 hours before WrestleMania because it was only a few miles away. So we're like, sure, why don't we go to that and then we'll go to WrestleMania straight. So you said it was a long show. We had a lot of wrestling there. I think we had 6 shows in 3 days.
As much as I love wrestling, I think that's, for me, would be way too much. I think just WrestleMania. Quickly, after watching WrestleMania this year, I needed a week off from wrestling. I thought, there's too, because it's Raw, NXT UK, SmackDown, and it's just like, I need a rest. Didn't have a rest, obviously watched it all, but it just felt like,
rest time
was, like, Jesus Christ, too much.
Our rest time was touring New York City because it was Matt's first time in the States. So I was like, hey, look, we gotta go to like here, we gotta go here, and we tried to fit in as much as we could, but it was a tiring experience for sure. That was a lot to try and do in such a short period, but I don't regret doing it. It was fun. It was something that we'll talk about 20 years in the future. Hey, remember when we did that? Good times.
That menu itself, 35, I think, was it not a 5-6 hour show? So you had that, the kickoff show. So how long were you actually in the arena? How long were you actually queuing up?
We were there for the whole time. It took a long time to get through. Like the security lines, it was like, oh gracious, this is going to take a heck of a long time to get through. But no, we were there for the whole pre-show. We were there. We didn't leave. Some people left for the main event. Some people around us were a little snippy. They were like, "It's women's wrestling. We're leaving." I'm like,
and really? You play worn out by then, like.
Yeah, some people probably had like long time to drive. We picked a hotel that was within an hour of the location, but. So we had we're not leaving. This might be the only WrestleMania we get to. We don't know that for sure. Yeah. I'm not leaving. No, I wasn't tired, so it was all good.
Another quick thing. And we did a lot of talk. Should Mania stay at 2 nights? Definitely. But someone said he went to 36, 35, and by the main event, they're crawling out the seat because it's such a long show. You're like you're just worn out. So.
I took one break. There was one match I wasn't interested in. I was not interested in seeing Shane O'Mac and The Miz, and I kind of took that as my intermission. I walked around the stadium, got some food, got a drink, went to the bathroom, came back, and I personally didn't have any problem with the length of time. And I'm somebody who has kind of a low attention span. I think if you're watching it on TV, I can totally understand those comments. Yeah. But when you're actually there and you're swept up by all the people around you and the music and the wrestlers, and it's one big thing after another thing. So you got your one thing, then you got something else that I never felt like it was like I was lagging in any way. And if they just said, hey, we're going to put on an extra couple of matches for you as a thank you for being here, I would have wanted to stay for those 2 as well. I had no problems with it at all. I knew what I was letting myself in for as well. I knew WrestleMania was going to be several hours long, and if I had to do that every week, I would be totally with you. I'd be like, yeah, I can't do this every week. But to do it as a one-off thing, for me personally, then I had no problems with it.
I thought Miz, again, very quickly, Miz Shane was good. The finish when he just put his arm over, that was good. The match for me that I thought was Reigns Drew. Was that a WrestleMania match? Not really.
I just don't like Shane O'Mac personally.
Do you agree it should stay at 2 days?
I can see why they do it 2 days. If you got all that trouble of setting up that arena for that event to strip it all down again for one night, that's a lot of work. If you can get people in there who want to see it for 2 nights, then I can totally see why you do it. I think the people who are attending though are probably getting a little shortchanged because they're not getting as much entertainment for the price. So I can totally see why WWE does it. As a fan watching at home, I like watching the shorter events. And then the following day, you got a little time to recover, and then you can watch some more. Yeah. So I like that side of it as well. But I kind of miss the spectacle. I'm going to be honest. I feel kind of privileged that, hey, I got to see the last single day WrestleMania, probably. I don't think they're going back to 1 day. If they can sell seats in 2 days, you're going to make twice as much money, and you don't have to set it up twice. So I think it's staying for 2 days.
You can't go backwards. I agree with you so quickly that they're making the double money. The City of the Rain making double money. It is better to watch for the fans there, the fans at home. You can have a storyline going into the second night. And yeah, you've got 2 nights of Mania rather than just one. It's like, 1 night, okay, but 2 nights, does it make it bigger? People agree, people don't.
Like the 2 nights, so if people suddenly said we don't want this, then they'd have to rethink it. But right now, I think people seem to like, in general, the 2 nights. So for the near future, it's definitely staying like that.
I think Dallas made 200 million, and I've shown you all the things bigger than the Super Bowl and 2.2 billion. There's no way they're going back to 1 night.
No.
You said that you go to indie shows. I've been to a few. I went to one on Saturday. Decent enough. So, what's your take on indie shows? What was your last one? What's your next one? And yeah.
Last one. Oh, I got to kind of think. I was supposed to go to one this weekend. With being on spring break, we were going to go up to New Jersey, go and see Pizza Party Wrestling's 3rd anniversary, and I was tired from work, and I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I can't go up there and drive back by 1 o'clock. I'm going to fall asleep at the wheel. So I'm not sure what the one the week before was. But I can definitely tell you what the next one is. This Saturday, I'm going to UEW Wrestling in Richmond, Virginia. It's only about an hour and a half away from us, and they got a lot of the Ring of Honor guys on there as well. Some of the NWA guys. I think the NWA. I'm not sure. I don't think she's the NWA Women's Champion anymore, but Camille's going to be there as well. Thom Latimer's going to be there.
I think I don't know. I don't watch NWA.
If you don't watch those organizations, then they might not mean anything to you. But if you do watch those ones, then they're names that would definitely attract interest. Josh Woods is going to be there. Rhett Titus is going to be there again as well. They've been there for the last few shows as well. So, but yeah, that's probably one of my closest locals. Actually, probably the last one I went to was probably just in Maryland. It's just over an hour away. I don't think any names that you would particularly recognize, but a lot of local wrestlers who are kind of working their way up.
I've heard of Camille, but heard of the name. That's it. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup, but I heard of the name. I think sometimes indie shows more value for money. You get to meet them, maybe a better experience than WWE or AEW or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly cheaper. So, what's your take on it all? Same, or?
The thing for me is, it just happened that when I started going to it, it just happened to be about 30 minutes away from me. That organization's unfortunately closed, and it was the price. I was like, hey, this is not too much. Let's go see. And you can get much closer to the ring than you can at any WWE event that we'd ever been to. So I was like, hey, let's check this out. And the thing that I didn't realize is that you have the merch tables where you can actually go talk to the wrestlers. You can get a picture with a wrestler, buy a t-shirt with them, all that sort of stuff. So that was definitely one thing. And the fact that you can heckle the wrestlers if you want to, and you know that they're going to hear that as well. But yeah, that interaction is far better when you're on, and when they're doing the suicide dives out the ring, you can be in their way. You're a lot closer to the action, so that's definitely an appeal. But now, sort of 5 years later, getting to see some of those stars that we've seen appear on AEW, appear on WWE, appear on NXT 2.0, it's a buy-in. And when I see those wrestlers now, I am far more interested on how they're going to do. People like Shotzi Blackheart, like, love Shotzi. Having seen her on the Indies, like now you're really rooting for those people. On AEW, people like Wheeler Yuta, who's had a big match against Jon Moxley last weekend. Same thing. We saw his debut at the indie event that we went to. We got his autograph. We got pictures with. It's just that it's that personal touch. I think that's the thing that I normally do when I talk on Good Bad Wrestle. I normally talk about the human side of it. I talk about those interactions with people. Matt normally talks more about WWE and the wrestlers involved in that and the match side of it. But yeah, I like the human side of it when you can physically talk to those wrestlers, ask them questions, get those mementos from them, and see them on their way up. I think that's, you never know. You just do not know who's going to be the next star. You don't know. One of those people could be holding that, could be having their WrestleMania event, WrestleMania moment in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time. But yeah, the price is definitely one of the things that's so appealing, that you can afford to take 2 kids there. You can afford to buy some souvenirs. And yeah, I'm actually looking at WWE tickets right now. They're going to appear probably less than half an hour away from me on my birthday next month. So I'm looking. The prices aren't too bad actually right now, but
if Reigns isn't there, no point going.
I don't remember if he is or not. To be honest, they did announce the women with it. I know Sasha, Bianca, and I think there was a triple threat, but I can't remember. Of course, cards subject to change anyway. So,
but quickly on price, I completely agree with that. And I should imagine, well, it is, the food and drink is usually cheaper as well at these events.
Yeah.
Quickly on WWE, I was lucky enough to be right near the barrier as it came out, and I got quite a few autographs. Took a sign with me, got it signed. That was just pure luck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, usually you better view near to the ring at these indie shows, and yeah, more into the action rather than who's that. Like if you're at WrestleMania, you can't say, and they're like ants. It's a better view at home.
Yeah.
Yes, it's part of the experience. You're all caught up, but you've paid all these money and you can't even see them. You're watching it on a big screen. Yeah. So I definitely agree about the indie ones. And we've got some brilliant indie promotions in the UK that are getting some stars over. The next one, I think I got to TNT Wrestling. I've probably haven't heard of that, but they're on D'Lo Brown at the next one. Nice. Progress Wrestling. So there's quite a few big ones. Progress work with WWE.
Mm-hmm.
So we're definitely killing it as an indie scene. And Jesus Christ, Love of Wrestling. Anyone that's going Love of Wrestling Con next weekend, it's going to be £1,500. And hopefully going to an indie event before that as well. So that's going to cost me even more.
But at that point, throw another £20 on an indie event. Sure, go for it.
I think that's going to cost me like £100 because I'm going to have to get an Uber from somewhere to somewhere. Like I've not spent enough. I'm just going to play one thing just to promote my t-shirts, and then we'll carry on. So let me just play this. Protein Tees Goldman for my t-shirt. So going back to WWE to a couple of more questions. Is SummerSlam and Mania the only ones you've been to, or have you been to house shows, Raws, or SmackDowns?
I actually made a special effort for you today, Ricky. I'm actually wearing my SummerSlam t-shirt that I got from Toronto in 2019. I normally wear my indie stuff, but I was like, I know I'm talking to you today, so I'll wear my WWE stuff. I have been to a few house shows. Obviously, they come through DC pretty frequently, so I think I've been to 3 of those. 2 at a smaller venue that's a little closer to us at a college, a university location as well. I'm trying to think which pay-per-views. I think it is just those two. I think it's WrestleMania and I think it's SummerSlam 20. And it just happened that things came up. I was supposed to actually be at NXT TakeOver in Toronto as well. I was at my in-laws in Ohio and I started to drive towards Toronto. And then I was going to go from Toronto back to Virginia. And I left something important back at the house and I had to drive back. And then by the time I got there, I was like, I can't get it. The ticket was only like $25. So I was like, unfortunate. I would like to have gone. I managed to get a really good deal. I don't think my SummerSlam ticket was that expensive. I think that was only like $30. It was like bargain prices. So I was like, yeah. So no, I think they're, as far as I can remember, they're the only one. You got to remember, kind of like the last 2 years, it's been kind of difficult to get to those events just because of COVID. But yeah, I was starting to rack up those ones. I really do want to see a Royal Rumble.
You've been to the big two, though. How long does it take to drive to Toronto then, roughly? How long?
If I was driving from Virginia, I think it was like a 9-hour ride back. But from my in-laws, it was... From my in-laws, it was 2.5 hours. So when I was going there, it was 2.5, and then it was the last day of my summer holiday. So it was kind of like, what a way to finish my summer holiday. Go to SummerSlam in Toronto, and then the drive back is actually really nice. You drive through some really nice areas of New York. It's not all interstate. You drive through some countryside as well. So it was kind of okay. I put on some audio books, put on some music, put on some podcasts, and I'm good. Give me that 9 hours contemplation time, thinking about all the cool stuff that I'd seen in that previous 24 hours, and yeah, it's all good.
Very quickly, we'll take about 30 seconds here. I would love to go to Mania, but hours and hours and hours of traveling, thousands of pounds I had to spend. If I'm spending 1,500 just for a convention here in England, it's big, it's a massive convention, but it's just in England. Just think about WrestleMania. So hopefully it comes to the UK one day, which brings me to the next question. I'm guessing you've heard September 3rd in Wales. Why is it not in London? In Wales, we're getting a pay-per-view. So your thoughts on this?
I think it's weird that they would do it in Wales. I don't really understand that unless there's something going on in London at that time and they just don't have access to Wembley. But they would sell Wembley out no problem. I don't understand why. Because obviously all the fans from England are going to go across to Wales, but it's really inconvenient. I know that stadium is good. Obviously, when Wembley was being built, they had a lot of events that were in Wales. But yeah, it's let's put it this way. It's better than not having anything at all. You just talked about all those travel costs. If you got to choose between having to fly over to America to try and do all that stuff compared to driving over to Wales, it's going to be much easier to do that. And there'll be trains and buses and different things you can do.
Yeah.
So they're not ideal, but it's a step in the right direction. And it shows you that they are thinking a little bit more outside the box, which is great to see. I wonder if it is like a test for, hey, if we do this, should we go to London afterwards? I am wondering if that's part of the thinking, but yeah, no, obviously great for Welsh fans, great for England. I would say 30 years. That's a long time for people to wait. A lot of people would have been too young to even go to that event as well. So
definitely, I'm presuming the stadium's bigger. Who knows? And there's a hint they're saying a weekend of WWE experiences, so maybe an access. That's just a guess. But I've very quickly I found some cheap hotels. I think for 2 nights it's like 200, and I'll be going with somebody, so I think it's like £100 each for 2 nights. That's fantastic for Wales.
Yep.
But it should be London.
Yeah, you got to get that stuff organised quick because everyone's going to be looking at those hotels now. Now they know it's happening and they know the date.
Oh, it's gone up. I looked today and I thought 400 quid, 500 quid for a hotel for 2 nights to get that. So I found one quite cheap and I thought, okay, that's cheap enough. They must know. All these hotels must know that the pay-per-view was happening, and which doesn't make sense. If I'm a hotel and I'm a good hotel, I'd lower the prices by £10-20 for people to come, but that's just me.
But it's a business. They're making the most of this.
It's a business to make money, but still, I'd make it cheaper. But that's me.
I'll tell you right now, don't spend money on the hotels. You're not going to remember the time in the hotels. You're going to remember the time at the events themselves. Hopefully, you'll spend minimal amount of time in the hotels. So yeah, if you're budgeting, you go for the cheapest that you can afford, and that doesn't matter. It's the event itself that's the important thing. That's what you'll remember.
certainly if there's an access, that's even more money.
Exactly. Yeah, you spend it on things that you want to spend it on, not things that you have to spend it on. So yeah, you go for the lowest you can possibly get.
Billy, I'm not sure he's been on with you before, or he's been on here, but he went to WrestleMania, and he was saying he went to Access, and there's lots of things that they charge you for, like the superstar entrance, and you get to commentate with Andy Shepherd for NXT UK. It's only $25, so it's not really anything, but still, it's more money.
Sure.
Like WWE don't have enough money. $1 billion company.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play just one quick another video, and then we'll get into promoting your podcasts and tell everybody what you do.
Okay.
So yes, on my socials there, and me follow me to catch me doing things like this. So the main reason I wanted to have you on was yes, chat about wrestling, but you do podcasts. You had me on. I had a great time. So tell everybody what you do with your podcasts. And yeah, tell everybody.
I guess there's two main ones. At Good Bad Wrestlers, you can see below. I do that one weekly on Sundays with Matt Willis, and there we go. That's it. That's our pictures at WrestleMania. So you can see we're lower level. We had pretty good seats there. Yeah, that one's every Sunday on Visionaries Global Media. My other two podcasts are really to do with my sons. My 14-year-old now, the MGB Wrestling Podcast. That's why I'm MGB.
Give me a second. Let me find it. That one. That one.
There we go. That's it. And we've even got the Twitter feed there at MGB Wrestling Pod. We didn't have an episode this week for the first time in about 80 weeks. So I'm not quite sure how much that's going to continue. And instead of doing that, my youngest son, who you can see in that picture there we go. He said he's been asking for a while, so he wants to do a sports podcast. So we did our first episode this week. It starts with the baseball, which is that picture in the top right corner. He wants to do baseball during baseball season, soccer as he calls it, out of baseball season, and football as he calls it, but American football as I would call it. Who knows? That's the thing I love about podcasting. You can evolve into whatever you want. You start it, and then let's see where it goes. And that's kind of one of the exciting things. You don't know what's coming in 3-4 weeks.
Does he not like basketball?
He plays basketball. He just did a camp, but I don't think he's not really interested in watching it. I think you might have heard this. You probably didn't like this at all. I actually didn't watch WrestleMania night one live because I was actually watching college basketball. It was the equivalent of the FA Cup final, which was on the same time as. So I had two screens going on, but I was focused more on the basketball than I was than the wrestling, and then I kind of had to catch back up again. So he's probably got it a little bit from me. We like a lot of different things.
That one, fantastic. Stone Cold. Wow. Just wow. Cody, wow. I thought it was fantastic. Anyway, that was another video for another time. So don't you do like movie reviews, or you speak about movies, don't you, on your podcasts?
No, I don't. Interestingly, I actually did a podcast with a good friend from Wisconsin last night, which was actually my first ever film review. He wanted to review Die Hard, and I love Die Hard, so I was like, I'll be quite happy to do that. So I know that's coming out in the next week or two, but no, I don't. It's either wrestling. Actually, it was just wrestling until last weekend, and then finally it was baseball, which I think was supposed to always be my podcast. Even though as a Brit, I kind of adopted baseball really quickly and traveled around to see all the stadiums. So now I do a little bit of baseball. But yeah, we'll chat about different things like a film we've seen, or an album we listen to, or a show that we've watched occasionally. But that's not really the main focus for sure.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely, 100% as far as I'm concerned. My shirt that I was wearing for that actually had John McClane wearing a Santa hat. So as far as I'm concerned, it's my number one Christmas film for sure.
Quickly split down the middle. A lot of people say it isn't. A lot of people say it is. If I had to pick a number one Christmas movie, it's got to be Home Alone, hasn't it? I think.
It's pretty good.
or Miracle on 34th Street. I just think a perfect film. Very old, but a perfect film. Have you seen that?
I have, yeah. Perhaps one of the more recent ones that I really like is I do like Elf. That started to one that we've kind of, as a family, started to watch each year now for the last few years.
But if I had to pick one, definitely Home Alone. Timeless classic. They made about 10,000 others and just aren't as good. But the first one, fantastic. So do you want to explain what like good cop, bad cop is, and explain a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Originally, it started out as Matt's a big WWE fan. I'm not quite so much, but we kind of alternated. One of us would pick out what were the good moments of the show was, and then the other person would pick out the bad moments of the show, and we kind of traded it like that. Now it's kind of developed, and it's pretty much whatever we want to talk about, whatever we would consider good as a good cop moment. So it could be a match that we saw the week. It could be something specific to a particular wrestler. It could be an indie event that we attended. It could be something we saw on social media. Pretty much anything that we consider positive in wrestling. And then on the flip side, we'll look at what do we consider what were the negative moments of the week. But we tend to probably not go for the biggest stories of the week. If you try and predict what we're going to talk about, you're probably going to get it wrong. And for that reason, we probably stand out just a little bit different from some of the other podcasts. And we're not going to talk about the biggest stories, but we're going to talk about stories that are of interest to us. And like I said, for me personally, I might pick out that indie star. I might pick out something that happened to them. Perhaps they appeared on NXT this week. Perhaps they made their debut on AEW. So, yeah, it's a little bit different from your traditional one, and we have our famous devil's advocate round right at the end as well, where you have to defend a wrestling hot take for 20 seconds. So if I was picking one off the top of my head right now for you, Ricky, it would be something like The Rock is totally overrated, and you'd have to defend it for 20 seconds, even though you don't agree. So it's always funny because you can't agree with it, but you have to for the point of the game. So that's always an entertaining little thing we do.
Or AEW Dynamite is worth watching. No. Maybe something like that. The pay-per-views are good. They're quite fantastic pay-per-views. I thought Revolution was great, but the weekly show, debut after debut, pop after pop after pop, it's just too much.
The thing that I like talking with you about, Ricky, is that we're on kind of very opposite sides with regards to things like that. But we can have a civilized conversation. You can tell me what you like. I can tell you what I like. We don't always agree with what each other said, but we can have those civilized conversations. And I like it when wrestling fans can do that. There's something for everybody. We're not all going to like exactly the same things, but I think we share that common love of people who are putting their bodies on the line to entertain us. And I think that's the bottom line that I think we can all agree on.
With AEW, I just think it's way too much. It's William Regal, Samoa Joe, Swerve Scott. Not only he's going to get a bigger push in WWE, and they go, William Regal. When he was in WWE, they hated him.
Oh,
or they hated WWE, or whatever. It makes no sense.
I got to argue with that. Nobody hated Regal when
he
was on NXT.
They don't hate Regal, but they... If I was if I not going to be AEW, Cody, I suppose. But if an AEW original came into WWE, be like, really? MJF is a rumor to be coming. We don't need him in WWE.
I think you'll make your product a bit better.
Speaking of good moments, bad moments, there've been a lot of positive moments in wrestling, but a bad moment. The stunner on Vince.
It was awful. Yeah. It was not good. Fell onto the ropes. Yeah, awful.
Even Stone Cold was laughing. It looked like he was trying to get away, but it was just a botch. I was like, okay. But he still looks damn good for 76, so...
not many 76-year-olds could have done that, and he still looks great. And I don't think it matters too much. I think the important thing, when we look back at this in 5 years' time, we won't remember that as much as remembering that Austin was back in the ring again, and the fact that he delivered another stunner to Mr. McMahon. I think it was just that reflecting back on what used to happen 20 years ago, and the sentimentality, and people loved it for that. So could it have been better? Of course. In the big scheme of things, it was great to see those two back in the ring together.
And to make Austin's comeback even more perfect, he came out at night one, 3 hours 16 minutes into WrestleMania. That's perfection. How do you time that? It must have been right. Dead on this time. Get out there.
Yeah. I'm sure that was deliberate. Yeah, that was one of my good cop moments from last week. That's like that's just too perfect. Just that chef's kiss right at the end there. You're gonna do good stuff, and then you're gonna do that as well. It's like, well played, WWE. Well played.
But I'm going to get your take on this. Who do they have as a major star next year? It won't be Taker, it won't be Austin, it won't be Triple H, The Rock. I can't see it. So who do you think he's going to be?
You don't think it's The Rock?
I think he'll be there. I think he'll go in the Hall of Fame, rock bottom elbow, if you smell all that. But does he wrestle? Like, when he's wrestled so much, I say he'll be 50. I just can't see it.
I don't think 50 is going to be that old for The Rock. It might be for other people. I think he still keeps himself in good shape. Like he still has action roles in film, so he has to look after his body. I think if anybody can do it, The Rock could do it. It's got to be somebody big for Hollywood. It just seems too obvious for it not to be The Rock. I can't think if it's not The Rock, then you're asking like who is it? And I don't have a good answer if it's not The Rock.
Does Cena not win his 17th title reign, and that's how he retires, and it's Cena that ends reigns?
Possibly. I don't think that's as big a moment as I think if you just brought Austin back, you got to each year you got to try and improve on that. And I think Cena's actually a step down from Austin. I think The Rock would be an equivalent one. So,
and if Rock Reigns happens, that doesn't need a title. But The Rock got injured last time. He's making all these big blockbuster movies.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see him even being allowed. He makes that much money that if he gets injured and out for a year.
He doesn't need to do it. Yeah, he doesn't need to do it for sure, but it depends on does he want that final hurrah? Having seen what it did for Austin this year, that's got to be something that's going to catch his attention, though, for sure.
Yeah, and it can't be a 2-minute match, and it can't be him doing all the work. It's got to be that 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Doing something. It can't be rock bottom, pillow's elbow, done or anything. So it might be The Rock. But I can't see it. I think it's Cena. I think that's the major star. Okay. He finally goes off into the sunset after 17 title reigns, making him the greatest of all time. Unless it's Goldberg.
Oh God, no, please. No more Goldberg. No more Goldberg.
Lesnar, is he now a major star? And Edge, because you've got Edge, but even Edge is saying he's on his way out. Mm-hmm. Like, who else can it be?
I don't know. Isn't that what keeps it exciting? If we knew all the answers, would there be any point in watching? So it's good that we don't know. It's good that we can kind of talk about what we think it's going to be, and then we can wait and find out. But yeah, no, it's kind of good that it's perhaps not that obvious.
Could say Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is certainly if you look at the promo for Mania, she's the face of it, and she's making a Marvel movie, so she's a major star. But on the level of an Austin or a Taker, hell no.
Mm-mm.
So we'll have to wait and see. So when is your next episodes? When you're going to be filming them? When you're going to be recording them events?
Not filming. Next episode it'll be next Good Cop Bad Cop. We're going to record on Saturday, and that'll come out on Sunday. And I'm not sure for Jackson's podcast. We're actually going to a Baltimore Orioles baseball game tomorrow. I haven't been to one in probably about 3 years, mainly because of COVID. So we'll probably record one Thursday, Friday, but that'll come out on Monday. But yeah, that one's kind of up in the air. That one's not so important right now. When you're recording with an 8-year-old, it's all about having fun. So if we record it, we record it. And if we don't record it, we don't record it. It doesn't make any difference. But yeah, Sunday on Visionaries Global Media will be the next Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Will you be having any guests on? I know I've had me on. You've had other guests on.
We are waiting for a response. We've talked to somebody. They knew that they were going to be on in either this week or next week, and they seem to have gone off Twitter for a couple of days. So we've got our fingers crossed. We're hoping we can get them in touch, and if we don't hear from them soon, then we're going to have to make alternate plans. But it should be okay. I have another way of contacting them if necessary. That's the troubling thing, trying to organise.
They're hiding. That's what they're doing. I think what'd be good for you, I don't know if you've done it in the past, could you not get like an indie wrestler on your podcast to promote it and to chat to and
We've had one. The first person I actually interviewed for the MGB Wrestling podcast, Benjamin Banks, who's a big fan of ours. We love Benjamin. He's one of the nicest guys. He was so gracious to agree to come on and do a 10-year-old at the Times podcast. We've seen him all over Virginia, and he does his own podcast as well. Really good guy. We did ask him on last year, so he came on, but that's the only one so far. Matt was supposed to have got as an indie wrestler, a British indie wrestler on, but it hasn't quite happened yet. I'm going to say the word yet because I'm still hoping that he can pull his magic and manage to get that. But yeah, it's there's so many people. There's a lot. It's always good to talk to new people. You get different interpretations, different moments, different everything, and it kind of just expands that little social circle. We kind of feel like, to begin with, we didn't really know our audience particularly well, but now I'm going to say we interact with those people a lot more, and I think that's been one of the real highlights of the podcast in the last year, managing to get people on. It's just difficult to that second run through. We keep saying, hey, we'll get people on for a second time. And then we keep thinking, oh, well, we forgot to ask you. And then we find new people we meet as well. So, but hey, it's a great problem to have for sure.
I certainly enjoyed being on, and very quickly, like I said, you could have the indie wrestlers on UK, play the way to start, and then who knows, you could work your way up to these released WWE guys from the like Isaiah Swerve Scott, or who else had been really released. Braun, maybe, for example. Be good to have them on, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be fun, but I don't think they're doing that sort of thing. I think that their appearance fees that they're demanding on the indies. I think Braun was asking for like $10,000 to appear on an indie show, so I don't think he's going to appear on our small little podcast, and I'm quite happy with that as well. I kind of like keeping it a little low key. I like talking to fans. I like people talking about what the real people are talking about, kind of like the water cooler. Although I don't work with any of you guys, it kind of feels like that chat on a Monday morning where it's like, hey, did you see the wrestling over the weekend? That's kind of the vibe that I really like. I would much rather have the fans' perspective than I would have a wrestler who's in that. I think there's places for things like that, like the interviews, like the interview section. I think that's perfect when you can talk to them on that. But I don't think it necessarily fits into perhaps what we're doing right now. In most cases.
If Braun wanting 10,000 for an indie booking, he ain't come in doing anything like this for free, is he?
Yeah. No, if Braun suddenly dropped in our DMs and asked if he could appear, then obviously we'd manage to get him on the show. But I'm not going to be the person that puts out requests like that. That's Matt's thing. He likes to put out some ostentatious requests to people, and he gets rebuffed on most occasions. But he's persistent with that. So, but yeah, no, we're happy talking to other content creators, fans of the game, and we're happy doing that right now.
Braun, I want you to appear on this podcast. How much? $20,000. Forget
you thought
that.
The money you were spending next week was a lot. It's going to be more than that.
I only want you on for 10 minutes. Yeah, 20,000. Forget it. Another podcast. I don't know if you've listened to this one. Your friend Justin. Have you listened to that?
Yes. He's still not on. Unfortunately, he's still not on my major podcast of choice, so it's a little difficult. So if I'm like on spring break right now, I have time to do it because I'm at home a little bit more. But when I'm on the road and when I'm normally listening to my podcasts, I can't get him right now. So it's still a little difficult for Justin. But yeah, him and Jeremy, awesome, top guys. Definitely check out their podcast. Go follow them. They're the most positive guys on the internet. They support everybody, and we love them for doing that.
Yeah, so everybody certainly go and check out just the In Time podcast. There's the link. And I agree. Yeah, Justin, fantastic guy to get on with. He's been on here. On his Twitter, on Twitter, he says some funny things. He says some obvious things like on wrestling that people don't notice. So yeah, great guy. Yeah. I don't think he's still been to a wrestling show yet, has he?
I don't think he has. Very knowledgeable, though. Very, very knowledgeable. That's for sure. Yeah. That was one of the hashtags we started to get around. I was like, book Justin. Like, yeah, if you're doing podcasts and you're looking for guests, get Justin on, get Jeremy on, top guys, and you won't regret it. You will not regret it for sure. I'm glad he has his own podcast. Somebody who had that voice, and it's like that's a voice that needs to be out there for other people to hear on a regular basis, not a semi-regular basis, appearing on a podcast here, a podcast there, occasionally. He has a lot to say, and it's well-informed material as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to be on here for Mania predictions and then Mania of a review, but he was working, and obviously he's hours in front, or I'm hours in front. However it works, I was in front. So
that's always tough. Yeah. Trying to get people's schedules together. The more people you add in and time zones, it's never easy.
It would be if all the time in this world was one time, that would be better. How would it work? I suppose
the country that's permanently in the dark when you're awake wouldn't be that happy about it. So it is what it is.
when's it going to be daylight? Never. Well, thanks. So yeah, you said you're doing your next episode soon. Waiting a guest. So when's the next indie show you're going to remind me again?
This Saturday, or April 16th, I think's the date. It's been announced for like 3 months, so it's been counting down. 2 months to go, 1 month to go, and then finally it's coming up this week.
And some of the Ring of Honor guys and NWA guys will be there.
National Wrestling Alliance. Yeah.
Got the name right. I've actually held the NWA title when Nick Aldis or Magnus, whatever you want to call him, came over here. Got to see the title defended, actually held the title. So that was pretty cool. A title that Dusty Rhodes won. He must have won it. And Ric Flair and people like that.
Yeah.
Very quickly, speaking of Dusty Rhodes, what do you think of Cody's return?
I'm excited by it. I think it's. I'm going to say he made a good impression at WrestleMania. The fans were happy about it. He put on a great match with Seth. I did catch Raw, because in case you wanted to talk about it today. But yeah, the reaction with The Miz. I like how The Miz corrected him as well on a couple of things. But no, he's definitely a character, and he is definitely somebody who is. My interest on WWE is definitely lower than what yours is, but with Cody, I am more interested to watch WWE now to see what's going on Raw and to see what storylines are happening with him. I'm going to quickly talk about the NWA belt as well, because my son got to hold it and he picked it up and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's heavy." I was like, "It is called the 10 pounds of gold." He obviously didn't know that with being so young, but yeah, no, really nice belt. And Nick Aldis is a great guy. And the person I mentioned earlier, Thom Latimer, is good friends with Nick Aldis. They've been battling back and forth on NWA in the last year. So yeah, good to see those British guys in America. Sorry.
I've actually held a replica UK title, and that's really heavy because it's just all solid gold.
Yeah.
Cody's return was fantastic. He got his AEW music, look, Tron, everything. His promos aren't scripted. So yeah, definitely. Could he be the guy that beats Roman? What do you think?
It'll be a good story. We talked about something having you need something that's going to be credible at this point. But yeah, his kind of pursuit, and particularly his talk about wanting to win that title that his dad held, I think that would be a good angle to go along. He's definitely far improved from when he left WWE. He definitely seems a much bigger figure. I'm just really, I say I do like AEW. I know you don't, but I was really surprised how they booked him. They booked him into that corner where he can't fight for the title anymore. Like, why? That doesn't make any sense. He's one of your big guys, and you don't. Yeah, very underappreciated at AEW, and I don't understand it. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see all the matchups he can have now with WWE people. So yeah.
He actually mentioned that in an interview. I watched it on YouTube about taking himself out of the title picture, and people still hated it. He was like, "What can I do? I try and take myself out of the title picture. People still hate it. Yeah. I never wanted to be a EVP or a booker or anything. It's cool for a few weeks, but then people hate you."
Yeah.
And very quickly with Roman, the more he's unbeaten and the more the Usos do, the less it becomes for anybody to beat him. Could it be Cody? Yeah. Drew maybe over here. Could it be Drew? Could Drew take the title off him over here? But Drew's not from Wales, so who knows? They're still building Drew quite every week, so that's good. But 4 months, 4 months, or is it 4 months away? Could be him. Could be.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm gonna just thank you for joining me. Put you backstage, and then I've got a few more things to promote. So talk afterwards if you want. If not, okay. So thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you very much.
So let me just promote very quickly. a lot of other stuff, and I've got a lot to do. So, PMP, Pancakes and Power Slam, on tonight, on every week, on YouTube and on Facebook. Dr. Chris Featherstone will talk about a wrestling topic. Tonight's topic, Austin Theory now being called Theory, which I don't think is a bad idea at all. Look at the other guys that have had the name changed. They've done very well. Before it is, on Sportskeeda page, an interview with former WWE, AEW, whatever. Another podcast here. And find the link. There we go. Domcast. So again, once again, if you're into your podcasts, you certainly want to check out Domcast. A couple of E-Feds, if you're into that. So, SDC, Sudden Death Combat. And TWF, Monday Night Chaos. That's another E-Fed, if you guys are into it. A couple of other things to promote, and then promote myself, and then we're done here. A promo E-Fed. So if you're good at your promos, here's one, and I've got another one for you, but here's the first one. Promo Performance Alliance. The other promotion is one that I am actually champion of, and in fact, the European champion. And that is NAW New Albany Wrestling on Facebook. And there's the link. So, promo E-Fed, if you're good at your promos, that is certainly the place to be. And let's get to myself. So, hang on. Goldman's Protein. So Protein Teas Goldman's. Facebook Ricky J Pate. Twitter Rick the Rock 30. My Linktree Ricky G34. WWA World Wrestling Alliance on Facebook. And certainly never least, for month-long shoutouts, like and subscribe. Here's just one final reminder. All my socials are there. And that's it. Another interview done. Be another film review coming this week. Movie review next week. And then the big one. Love of Wrestling Convention. A few names I'll ream off for you. Kurt Angle, Trish Stratus, JBL, Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, Eric Rowan, Leon Garcia, the Nasty Boys, Bo Dallas, and many, many more are going to be there. There's a retro wrestling show, there's Q&A, there's plenty. It's going to be damn expensive, but very much looking forward to it. So, yeah, so I'll be reviewing that. And I will be reviewing that and be on Facebook and Twitter. They're live. So once again, thank you. And it is Ricky Goldman out.